Hey, book lovers! Welcome to the Nook of Books and this week's podcast. And this week we are reading Haunting Adeline. And you will probably notice that none of my talking is syncing with what's on your screen. My mic decided to have a funny 5 minutes, so the first part of my video is totally silent. I had to get rid of the feedback, which is why you are now stuck with me. So, this book has its own playlist just inside the front cover. Here are the trigger warnings. Please take note of these before you dive into this book. You can see on the bottom left corner of the screen that I have already shown the spice rating, star rating, title, genre, page count, and how long it took me to read this book. It wasn't a continuous 3 days of reading, let me just clarify that. It was on and off, and then binging a chunk of it on the third day. What would have gone into a fourth day, I finished literally around 1 a.m. going into day 4, so I'm not really sure if you would count that. So let's get into this. Okay, so dark romance, as you can imagine, it is dark, and I mean dark. You saw the trigger warnings, don't take them lightly. The romance, spice is insane. Your jaw will drop and hit the floor when the scenes come. They're unmissable, unmistakable. You have the main character, Adeline. She is a writer in Seattle, Washington, and has the unfortunate event of catching the eye of a murderer who ultimately becomes her stalker, Z, as you will get to know him to be. He is an intense character. Like, he is always around, in the house, in her room, in her closet, outside her house. Whenever she doesn't think he's there, he is always there. But he protects her as much as he stalks her. It's completely unhealthy, and honestly, the relationship would be so beautiful had he not been a total creep about it and started stalking her. He actually seems like a decent guy. He has his own vibe, and he's anti-hero-ish, so you learn to love his quirks, violence and all. That would be another thing to bring up. The violence, extremely explicit violence, hearing the sound of eyeballs popping, like the descriptive language is fantastic in its gore. But please, again, with the trigger warnings, and check out Nana's diary. She always wore red lipstick, so sealed each diary entry with a kiss. And there's this mystery around how she died. She was murdered, so Adeline takes it upon herself to figure out who murdered her and why. And it turns out that Nana, or great-grandma, also had a stalker. It seems to run in the family. So great-grandma's murder takes place in the 20s, and it's after Adeline's grandmother passes away that she inherits the house, ultimately discovers this safe behind a painting, and then finds this diary with all the entries. This book was such an enjoyable read. I mean, the world itself, it's not hard to immerse yourself in. It's not dystopian, it's set in modern day times, with modern day characters and everything that goes along with it. Like I said, Adeline is a writer, very successful, and she's actually doing a book signing when Z finds her for the first time. The book itself is set in Seattle, Washington in the USA. So super like rainy, dreary weather, just like England, but it gives off like crazy fall vibes, really fun Halloween spooky vibes. So it was perfect for the October reading time. I mean, definitely going into November, you could do it too. I plan on reading the second book through November, as I did put it onto my TBR. I'd like to clear up some misunderstanding around dark romance and dark academia. Some people think it's just kind of a mood or a fashion statement, or like it touches on a couple. Dark fantasy as a reading genre, particularly touchy subjects, shall we say, that could be like, triggering if you suffered like a really bad past or any kind of abuse, so on and so forth, mental health. But this genre encompasses that and far, far more. It's about all the really fucked up shit in this world that is never really put to voice or into print. This book, it says in the cover that it was initially removed even from the market until the trigger warnings and everything were put in place in a lot more depth before it was allowed to be re-released to the public. So when I say tread lightly, please, my book darlings, tread lightly. It is a fantastic genre, but don't go in thinking 50 Shades of Grey, because 50 Shades of Grey is vanilla with sprinkles compared to dark romance, dark academia, dark fantasy genres. And now, back to our regular programming in 3, 2, 1. The bulk of these books is very dark, very disturbing material. So if it's not your jam, I would not recommend it. Like I said, if you check out the corner of this video, if there is things on that list that make you feel like just totally grossed out, eked out, can't conceive on why people would want to read about it, and all that kind of stuff, and just use that as your red flag down there if it's not your thing. You'll either love it or you'll hate it. It's totally marmalade. But for those who enjoy dark romance and dark academia, you will love this book. Like I said, 4.25 stars for sure. And I did pull this name out of my reaping for this month. But because I've already read it, I'll probably just dive straight into the second book, which is Hunting Adeline, again by H.D. Carlton. And this is the Cat and Mouse series. And I will keep you up to date on how the second book goes, because to say the first book ended on a bit of a cliffhanger is just like, I was so like, oh my god, we're out of pages already? No! But then I didn't totally know what was going to happen. I kind of anticipated aspects of like how the book ended, because there was like all this build up, there was hints at it, and then there was people that he would usually kill but he spared, and I kind of knew in the back of my mind when he spared this one person that it was going to come back and just bite him in the ass, and it does. Definitely does. But yes, so dark romance, get on it. If you're totally into it, definitely buy it. Worth the read. 4.25 stars. And I will see you next Friday for the next podcast. I won't reveal which book that's going to be yet. I'm going to keep it a bit of a surprise. And yeah, have an awesome weekend, my book lovers. Much love. Mwah!